Education was my #1 issue, although you didn't hear it reported often. All anybody talked about was, well, the speaker wants to do something about taxes. Well, that's true, but I think there's a bigger problem facing the state of Georgia than water, transportation, trauma care, taxes. I think it's education. We are graduating barely 65% of our high school students in this state. Now let me say that again so it sinks in. 1 out of every 3 13, 14, 15-year-olds that's entering yours and my high school are not graduating from high school. 1 out of 3. Now then, we can talk about what the problem is. We can talk about whose fault it is. We can talk about why it's happening and why it's not changing. But none of that does anything about it. It is a problem that causes this state to lag behind in lots of other categories, because when you have students not graduating from high school and they get out, they're not going to get a job, and the economic cycle is going to continue. And I said this over and over again. If mom and dad didn't graduate from high school, little Johnny's probably not going to graduate from high school, and the cycle continues. We did 2 things on we tried to do 2 things. One is we did have a charter school bill that for the first time is going to let charter schools form and be approved other than local school boards, so that if parents want to have an opportunity to educate their children, they can band together and have charter schools. I had a bill called the Bridge Bill. Representative Fran Millar carried it, but here's what it was designed to do. It was designed to do something very simple. It was going to put technical and adult education in every high school in Georgia. Not some high schools, every high school in Georgia. And this was not going to be your father's or mine and yours VOTEC school. It was going to be a modern VOTEC school. It was going to be a school to teach kids in high school and pick them up. And it was going to require counselors to identify potential high school dropouts and get them in some career so that they learn how to be an electrician or a computer technology person, or IT as they call it now. Some skill that is currently being teached. Yeah. Is being taught by our teachers. Don't you love it?
What did that say, Georgia State?
Let's put a footnote on this. You know, this is the great thing about this job. You know, if you make one mistake, everybody labels it, well, he's stupid. I'm not stupid, I'm just ignorant. There's a difference. But I wanted to get our high school students an option. And we called it a bridge program, so that if you started out in high school and you wanted to go to college, you could cross the bridge to technical and adult, and you could go back across the bridge to college if you wanted to. Now here's a fact. Less than 15% of Georgia's high school students that enter high school ever graduate from a 4-year college. Now think about that a second. Less than 15% ever graduate from college. So you tell me this, why are we teaching every high school student to go to college? It's time to change it. I keep telling DOE, Department of Education, let's change the focus and teach a skill. We had a bill, a bridge bill. Senator Shaw didn't get a chance to vote on it. It was voted on in the House overwhelmingly. Bipartisan support. It was on the calendar, but the Lieutenant Governor chose to not call it for a vote on the final day. It never got voted on. Even though the money was placed in the budget, voted on and approved to fund it, to start funding it. If I don't do anything else, I want to change the high school graduation rates in Georgia and graduate Georgia's high school students. Because I think we're missing the boat. And if we failed again, which means another year of waiting, another group of high school students that don't have a chance to learn some skill to become taxpayers in this society. We didn't do anything about transportation. We actually voted on several different proposals and ultimately failed to get the votes. And it's a little controversial. I think maybe the problem I have is I will tell you the truth. I will not lie to you. And I sometimes get in trouble when people say, well, my goodness, why does the speaker always start trouble? Here's all I say about transportation. If you think traffic is bad today, just wait till next year. It's going to get worse because we did nothing about it. We did nothing about transportation. We have done nothing for a long time. It's time to come up with some other options. I thought letting regions decide if they wanted to tax themselves was the answer. If they didn't want to, that's okay. But right now, with the current amount of money that we generate and the cost to build roads, we're not doing enough about transportation. And so it's not going to get better. Trauma care was in the same category. I thought it was time to have a statewide trauma network. I thought the perfect place to do that was if we're going to take the taxes off your cars, that we would add $10 on for trauma care. And so we actually passed a bill in the House that said this: if we vote and the voters approve taking taxes off the cars, there'll be a trauma fee of $10 put on there. So that when you went to register your car, it would cost you $30. $30, and that would have included trauma care. Well, that didn't pass either. And now we get to taxes. I don't like to pay income taxes, but at least I know I pay a percent of what I make. If I make more, I pay more. If I make less, I pay less. I don't like to pay sales taxes, but here's what I do know. Every time I go buy something, I make an informed decision to pay sales taxes. Then we get to property taxes. Property taxes are the only tax that people pay that they have no ability to control whether they go up or down. They typically don't go down. And just yesterday, in the midst of one of the worst building crises killing property values in this country, Fulton County raised the value of thousands upon thousands of residential properties and said, even though the market's down, these properties went up in value. Now, they did say they were lowering some values. That's good. I became convinced that if you go and have a job and you earn money and you get that money after taxes and you go buy an object, a house or a car, you pay sales taxes on the acquisition. So you've already paid income taxes on the money and you've already paid sales taxes on it. And I became convinced that taxing people's cars and their property was wrong. Now, I started off by telling you that we could eliminate property taxes. I was a little bit ahead of the curve. I'll admit that. I sort of got out on point, and I was out so far I left the troops behind. That's because I thought taxes, property taxes, were so bad we ought to eliminate them. 160 years ago, there were no property taxes. But what has happened is, it's like frogs boiling in a pot. The water just kept getting warmer and warmer. We just accepted that, oh, well, you have to pay property taxes. Well, why? Why do you have to pay property taxes? I'll tell you where I am right now. And I'll tell you where we were the last day of the session.